Hey guys, Carlo Filippone here, your muscle chef, ready to talk to you about this guy, the chicken pound. What do we do with the chicken pound? We prepare grilled chicken in different flavors, 6 to be exact. If you're serious about bodybuilding and you meal prep, don't go anywhere else. This is the company for you.
You're watching RxMuscle. This is Ask Dave, better known as #AskDave. And I am Tyler, your producer, in for Sid Faruqi, who is, as I understand, obliterated from his Olympia weekend. But, of course, it was a joyful obliteration that he's been led to because he's got a ton of coverage I'm sure you've all been enjoying, and you can still enjoy on all of the channels and whatnot right now. Let's go ahead and bring in Dave to the other side of the other camera in the studio.
You know, Tyler, I never knew that you were so comfortable in front of a camera. I'm very thankful that you're willing to sit in for Sid because, you know, Sid is in bed, and I think his wife made him. She grounded him because he basically, I don't think he slept the entire Olympia weekend. And I thanked him already on Heavy Muscle Radio, but I will reiterate the thank you to Sid for doing an awesome job at the Olympia in Las Vegas with Chris Aceto and Ralph Noble and our whole RxMuscle crew there. We had some awesome coverage. The YouTube channel blew up, and so I wasn't there. You weren't there, but those guys carried it down. So we got to make sure Ask Dave stays on course this week.
Of course. So thanks again to Sid, and I am less comfortable than I appear, Dave, but I'm glad it looks like that. Let's go ahead and get right into the questions.
The question will be, can you pronounce the names of all these exotic chemicals and supplements that all these people ask me questions about?
No. Can't not. You can go ahead and correct when you need to, though. All right, here we go. Let's start with a controversial Olympia question, staying in theme there. This is from k.fitness.club. Didn't Hadi Choopan deserve to be in first place for his complete muscularity in all shots and amazing conditioning? Wasn't it clear that he should beat Brandon Curry?
You know, I wasn't there, as I just reiterated earlier. So it's hard for me to say anything, but I had Dennis James on the show. I had Chris Aceto on the show. I had Sean Ray on the show this week. And every single one of them said that Hadi was so much more impressive in person. But, you know, and they said they didn't have a problem with him winning, but everyone at the end of the day said that Brandon deserved the win. So I think that Brandon's structure, the way his body flows, his height, his presentation, his look says Mr. Olympia. And after all, the judges are not just judging pose for pose. Hadi can win every single mandatory pose, and Brandon can still win Mr. Olympia because he's got a better overall impression. If you broke down Arnold Schwarzenegger's poses back in the day, he didn't have good side triceps, his lat spreads were weak, and yet he dominated the Olympia because his overall look, when you saw him on that stage, said Mr. Olympia. And that's what Brandon had. Brandon had enough to win the Olympia. Hadi's going to have a difficult time because he's short, okay? That's why a lot of people, myself included, said he should have done the 212. Now, I go back on that statement because he did so well in the Open that I think it was a smart move to do the Open. I still believe that they should allow him to do both divisions if he wants to, especially if he qualifies for both. So having said that, I think that Brandon Curry winning the Mr. Olympia was the right decision.
Keeping in theme with one more Olympia question, do you think Flex Lewis would have placed top 3 at the Open in this year's Olympia?
That's a good question. It's a good question. And it's very hard to answer because I haven't seen Flex Lewis stand next to these guys in that lineup. Now, the only time we saw Flex Lewis stand next to Hadi Choopan, a lot of people thought he lost. And Hadi has gotten better since then. Obviously, Flex in an open category will be better too because he'll be fuller, he won't have to suck down to weight. I think it would certainly be in the realm of possibilities that Flex could have been top 3. He certainly probably would have beaten Dexter and been top 4. I think that Flex in the open division is better than Dexter at this point, at least the Dexter that we saw at the show. That's not to say that Dexter might come back next year and be crazy because that's Dexter Jackson's view. But he certainly would have been top 4 or 5 in this Olympia.
Maybe one more Olympia question. Hey, Dave, in your estimation, this is from Aesthetics Withins, with a Z on the end. Within your estimation, how many of the men's open and classic physique Olympia competitors were using diuretics this past weekend? Do the top pros stick with thiazide class drugs, or are they gambling with loop diuretics?
I would venture to say that probably every athlete on stage is using some sort of diuretic to get rid of excessive water. It's pretty standard for a pretty standard protocol. I think maybe some of the bikini girls might not use it because maybe it makes them a little too dry, but I would say that most men's bodybuilders, classic guys, men's physique, probably are on diuretics. Which ones they use, I don't know because I don't help all of them. I would tend to believe that most of them who are smart are probably using Diazide, for a diuretic because it's a balanced diuretic, it's potassium sparing, and pretty much the only thing that really it causes you to lose is sodium, which makes it very easy to fix if anything goes wrong. So the most common diuretic I would say would be Diazide. Some people will use a little aldactone leading up into their Diazide usage the day before. That's not something I use, but I think you'll see some competitors doing that as well. And then, maybe some of the really watery guys, the guys that just are water bags, might use some loop diuretics like, Lasix or something like that. Some of them might even venture into using injectable Lasix. To me, I think it's unnecessary, but there are some people that do use it. I think predominantly we're seeing Diazide usage or the generic forms of it, which is hydrochlorothiazide, triamterene, or hydrochlorothiazide with amiloride, similar balancing diuretics.
Okay, I lied. One more Olympia question from AZY107. It's a two-parter. Dave, what is wrong with Dexter's right shin? And we had a couple questions regarding the lighting at the Olympia. What do you think of the lighting at the Olympia? It was either most of them were off or the lighting had to do with it.
I think a lot of guys were just off, unfortunately. The lighting looked fine to me. I feel bad. No, a lot of these guys just were not in shape, and that was the problem. It has nothing to do with the lighting, The only place the lighting is better than the Olympia is the Magic Mirror over there in Kuwait, but that's, you can't hold an Olympia in the Magic Mirror. Now, what was the beginning question? You remember the beginning part of the question?
What was wrong with Dexter's shin?
Oh, I don't know. I didn't notice Dexter's shin. Everyone, I'm the least, ask my wife, Amanda, I'm the least observant guy of all time. I look at muscle bellies, but I don't see little defects unless it's like glaring me in the face or, usually if you're in the theater, you can see it a little bit more because it's kind of like it's right in front of you. I didn't notice anything about his shin at all. I don't know if did he bang into something? I don't know. I have to take a look at the pictures again and really examine it more than that.
Couldn't tell you. Oh, here's a quick one. The Bonafide Beast yells in capitals, answer this. Is there still any CREALYZE available?
The CREALYZE sale, which was supposed to have ended Sunday night, was extended another 2 days because my webmaster never removed it. So we gave away a free jug of CREALYZE, with a purchase of, I think it was $50 or more. Is that what we were doing? Or I don't even remember what the sale was. The sale's over, needless to say. So you'll have to wait till the next sale. But CREALYZE is still available for purchase. It's a terrific product. Even if you have to pay whatever we're charging for it, I'll tell you what. I'll give you guys a coupon code for next time so you guys can save on the entire website. That'll be next week's sale. This week, because Sid's not here, we're not really doing any sales, and we're still trying to catch up from the Olympia sale. A lot of orders came in. When we do these sales, people don't realize the orders go like 10 to 20 times what they normally are. And my beautiful wife, Amanda, processes those orders. So we don't want to hurt. She's still catching up from the last sale. So next week we'll probably have another sale on something different. But if you got a chance to get the CREALYZE and you try it and you like it, feel free to post, your response and your reviews. I think people really enjoy CREALYZE because it mixes so well because it's ultra micronized. And when CREALYZE mixes or any kind of creatine supplement mixes and goes into solution, and you guys absorb it better, you get results from the creatine. A lot of times these creatine products don't mix. They sit in the water, you drink it down, they stay in your intestinal tract, they pull water, you get diarrhea from it, and you get no benefits from it. So I wanted people to be able to try it, and that's why we did that little Olympia sale where we gave away a free jug.
Let's see. Filippo Della Vega, maybe. If you don't have high prolactin levels and the other tests are in order, why do some people still lactate?
With lactate, there's two different issues with glandular issues in men. Estrogen can make the glands get bigger. Prolactin can make them produce, a discharge, mucus. Because prolactin causes lactation in women, when they give birth. Now, here's the issue. once you've produced these glands and they've been lactating at one point or another, when you have had a high prolactin, a lot of times they'll continue to do that. And a lot of these guys, and I know it sounds disgusting, thank God I never had to deal with that, will squeeze the glands and they'll squeeze crap out of there. And the more you squeeze it, it's like a baby nursing on there. It's going to make those glands want to produce more secretion. So you could have normal prolactin, and if you constantly squeeze on these things and pulling on them, you're going to produce fluid out of there. So my best advice would be get them taken out. That's what 90% of the pro bodybuilders have gotten their glands out. You never have to worry about it again. You can't get gynecomastia. I've recommended over and over, don't cheap out on the surgery. You go to a guy like Dr. Blau in White Plains, even if you got to fly there, it's not a serious surgery. Get it done right so it looks good. All the glands are removed. You don't have to deal with it. And you don't have to deal with lactation issues. You don't have to deal with hanging glands. You don't have to deal with the cosmetics of it. You don't have to spend a fortune on aromatase inhibitors. And what you'll find is that it will take your mind off of this and onto building muscle. So that is my suggestion. But that's the reason why they'll continue to lactate, because people stimulate the glands so much that you don't even need the prolactin anymore.
Here's one we haven't, at least I don't remember hearing before. Why do powerlifters use oral steroids like Anadrol and D-bol? What is their benefit over injectables? Why are oral steroids known as strength builders?
Well, those drugs do increase strength quite a bit. They're very heavy in androgens. We know that heavy androgen drugs increase strength. Trenbolone, Dianabol, Anadrol. Okay, these are drugs that when you raise that, I guess you could say that androgenic component, not only do they make the muscle physically stronger, but they make you mentally stronger. They increase aggression. And orals, because they hit you very quickly, okay, are something that you can increase strength with very fast. A lot of times halotestin is used as well. It's funny, halotestin has no anabolic qualities to it. It's exclusively androgen, and it makes you really angry and really strong, and it makes you load glycogen at a much more accelerated rate. And once again, it hits you very fast, and that's the whole thing with powerlifting. They want to be able to pop something and then feel it. I remember back in the day, I've told the story before, I was taking Andriol, which I think at the time was called Androxin. It was an etherized testosterone. It's testosterone undecanoate, I believe. And you would take these things. They would only last 2-3 hours in your body, but they would hit you like instantly. The funny thing is they had no liver toxicity and no conversion to estrogen because they really weren't in your body that long. And once I remember I was really tired and I said, I don't know if I'm going to be able to squat. And I had just started squatting 600 pounds during workouts. And I really wanted to do it again, so I popped 2 Andriol, and I'm telling you, I got so strong on these things. It hit me so quickly, and I got under the bar and I almost tore my quad because I just wasn't physically ready to do that weight. I was tired. I should have just taken it as a sign and gone lighter, and I went and tried to do 600, and you know what? I was doing it, and next thing I know, I feel the quad muscles start to separate. Luckily, I stopped the exercise in time and had my training partner lift the weight for me, and I didn't tear my quad, but I could have. So you got to be careful. These orals, especially the fast-acting ones, will hit you very quickly and make you very strong, stronger than maybe you should be.
This next one's from Snooki, 1996. I don't see the blue check mark, but I'm pretty sure it's her. If you gain fat easily with high carbs, in a gaining phase, would you keep carbs moderate but make up the calories with poly and mono-unsaturates?
So, no, it was a maintenance phase. Is that what she's asking about?
I have to assume, Dave. I'm not really sure.
Okay. What I do is once I get people to lose weight, once, I lower their carbs down, I put them on high protein, moderate fat, depending on what their caloric requirements are, based on how big they are and how fast their metabolism is. Once their weight loss has gone, I still keep the protein and fats there, but I add carbs. The key is you don't need to add as many carbs if you're still staying on the fats as well. And that's an advantage because I think most, especially women, will gain weight from carbohydrates. So even if you put 150 grams of carbohydrates back and reduce the fats, now you're taking away something that's essential to the body, the fats. You're adding carbs, but you're not. You're adding too many for that person, and then they're gaining fat back. So rather than add 150 grams of carbs, you can maybe add 75, 80 grams of carbs, keep your fats in. Now you have enough carbs to just load glycogen in the muscle, but not enough excess to store as fat. And that's a good maintenance diet. And then you give the person a cheat meal once a week to enjoy themselves. and spike metabolism. That's the right way to go about it.
Switching away from fitness and into the realm of fatherhood, Victor Saldana Classic asks, scariest moment as a father this far?
My son, when he was, I'm trying to think how old he was. He must have been about a year old, maybe a little under that. Decided he was going to climb on the back, up the couch, and jump off the back of the couch, except he had no safety mechanism whatsoever, no safety awareness. He just jumped off and landed on his head.
Oh.
And we heard thump. And we're like, uh-oh. And it took like there was like a 3-second pause before the crying started. And my wife and I just like swooped in on him.
Oh,
she scooped him up. We put ice on it. We took him to the emergency room. They don't do MRIs on young kids like that if they don't have to, because they don't want to subject them to the radiation. They kept us in a room for about an hour. He was all like out of it. And then within an hour, he completely pepped up and he was like, fine. And so they're like, you know what, this is a good sign. They checked him out and they said, I think he's going to be fine. You know, kids bounce when they're that age. He had a knot on his head, and he still has that same knot on his head. Not as big, obviously, but you can see the remnants of it, because I think it was such a, he had such a swollen head that he obviously probably got some calcification from that. That was the scariest moment luckily I've never had a scarier moment than that. That's the scariest moment, because I thought, oh my God, you know, this is it, you know, the kid's gonna crack his skull open. So it's scary, because you know what? My wife says it best. Our job is to keep our kids alive, basically, until they hit an age where they're you know, they're not dangerous. And that's really the first couple of years of their life. They just do stupid, crazy stuff because they have no fear or no awareness that they can hurt themselves. And that's why you have to you have to have eyes in the back of your head. You know, I think my wife is too overly protective, but she's right. You know, these kids do the stupidest stuff. Just when you turn around for 1 second and they're doing something that you can't believe, they're climbing the refrigerator, you know. So that was my one time.
All right. Back to bodybuilding. Cloudza asks, Dave, after you switched from competitive bodybuilding, how did you manage to get a healthy weight range and accept the fact you'll never be the biggest guy in the room again? Big Roxia is apparently a thing and is shared within the bodybuilding circle. And I've noticed, however, many men talk about how small they are when they are bigger than 99% of the population. Do you think this is good for young men?
You know, I personally downsized purposely. I didn't have to. I could have stayed. The truth of the matter is that even off drugs, if I eat, I would have maintained. I was maintaining my muscle. I wasn't losing any weight. I couldn't believe it. I didn't know what to do, because I really wanted to lose some weight. And the only reason I really wanted to lose the weight was because my blood pressure was a little high. And I'm like, you know what? I really don't want to die young, you know, of a heart attack. I'm like, there's no reason for this. If I bring my weight down, I know that my blood pressure will go down. Even though it's genetically probably, you know, as you age, your blood vessels lose their elasticity. You tend to have higher blood pressure if it runs in your family. My father got higher blood pressure as he was older. And my blood pressure wasn't super high. It was high enough that I didn't like the range it was in. So I downsized a little bit. And then, you know, my shoulders started to hurt. I mean, I've always had shoulder problems for the last 18 years. They started really hurting me. So I downsized a little more, and I feel less weight on them. And then, of course, I had the quad injury. So I have like less weight on the quad. It's going to be less strain on it. So I got to a weight where I was down to about 200, and I felt pretty comfortable there. And then, you know, I had my 2 shoulder surgeries where I couldn't train. They didn't want me in the gym at all because, you know, God forbid, you know, I tore something. And I got my weight down to about 190. So, and I feel good at that weight. That's like a good weight. To me, I'm all or none. I'm all in or none. I don't really have like an ego in the sense that, you know, I need to be validated as the biggest guy, because I already was. So I wanted to be the biggest guy. I wanted to be the leanest, freakiest guy. And I did it, even though I might not have been the best bodybuilder in the world because I just didn't have the genetics for that. I was validated as a guy, hey, this guy can put muscle on. This guy can get conditioned. And I did it for multiple years. So I was like, all right, I'm done with that. Let me try to do something else now. I would rather be validated for my, you know, for my analysis, from my educational standpoint of my ability to teach people things, and say, hey, this guy has got good skills in terms of interviewing people, great skills at educating us as to how we can stay healthy and build muscle and burn fat, and that's where I poured all my attention into. Never neglecting my health or how I looked. I didn't have to be the biggest guy anymore. I didn't need to have my ego stroked in that sense, because I felt like I already got that out of my system. And I think that it's important that you constantly change and evolve your different mindset of how you want to look and keep recreating yourself. I wanted to be the skinniest guy at one point when I was a distance runner because I saw all these long distance runners was skinny and I had muscle on my body. I didn't look like them. And it was bothering me. I said, why am I so big? Why do my legs touch together? Well, genetically I had bigger legs. I played soccer my whole life. So I had to starve off that weight. And then once I got to that point and proved that I could be the best runner that I could be and won a few races, I said, okay, good. Now I want to be a bodybuilder. But I wanted to be a Stallone bodybuilder at first, just look good. And then of course, then you want to be Arnold, then you want to be Haney, and then you want to be Dorian Yates. So that I got to that point, and so now I found something else. Nowadays, I like the whole supplement thing. I'm into, obviously promoting, my species nutrition line, teaching people about, how to be good coaches. I think that's important because our industry is built on this idea that we need to educate the next generation. And of course, I have other interests. I'm into reptiles now. I breed snakes, so I'm completely consumed with that. So if you constantly find new things that you are creatively involved with that will keep you interested, you won't be preoccupied with trying to be a 300-pound bodybuilder when you're 50 years old, because that's just not compatible, those goals. And if you don't see that, then you might not want to go see a psychologist, because that's not the right way to be thinking, and that's how you wind up dying, because you're trying to be the guy you were when you were 20, when you're 50, and when you do that, usually it doesn't end well.
All right. This seems to be a topic a few people would like address. Kev is wondering how to control sweating on stage. Is it minimal water intake and diuretic use, or water loading then cutting? How do you figure out the right balance?
I mean, theoretically, if you're dry, in other words, if the muscles are not holding excessive amounts of water, or under the skin is not holding an excessive amount of water, you really shouldn't sweat very much on stage. However, I've seen guys pouring water out of them, and they really don't even have the water to pour out of them. It's obviously coming out of the muscle. Now, why is that? That usually is a nervous system reaction to something. High cortisol output, you're super exciting the nervous system, and you're getting an adrenaline rush, and you're causing you to sweat. Low blood sugar. Sometimes even an adrenaline rush will lower blood sugar, and then you get that low blood sugar, cold sweat. So there's a lot of things that can cause that. Assuming you're dry on stage, okay, which is you doing your homework, drying out properly, carving up properly. If you're sweating on stage, it's got to be nervous system related. And then you have to figure out, well, why is that happening? Is it happening all the time, or did it just happen to me once when I was very nervous? If it happens all the time, then it could be some kind of a reaction that you're having to actually going on stage. The fact that you're nervous and it's dropping your blood sugar, which means you might want to just continuously eat, backstage little bits of food to keep your blood sugar stable. I like to do rice cakes, plain rice cakes and peanut butter, because, fats take a long time to get absorbed. So if you're constantly eating those backstage, your blood sugar is going to be very stable. It's going to take a long time for those things to be absorbed, but you're only eating the rice cakes, don't really occupy much space in your stomach. The fats delay their absorption. It gives you a nice steady stream of glucose into that bloodstream, which will prevent you from crashing your blood sugar. That's another reason why I tell guys not to eat a lot of sugar backstage. You eat sugar, yeah, you get veiny and everything like that, but then if they keep you out on that stage longer than you think, or you're backstage longer than you think, and your blood sugar drops, you get the cold sweats, and forget about it. Your physique goes to disaster. I don't recommend having simple sugars backstage. Eat complex carbs with a little bit of fat. At this point backstage, you should be ready to go. You shouldn't need to do any tricks to wake your body up. That's just, once again, that's just smart planning, okay? You start doing wacky stuff and eating Twizzlers and all kinds of fruit backstage, you're going to crash on stage, especially if you're out there a long time.
Oh, let's go back to Olympic questions. Crookie Monster wants to know, and you may have answered this in some other form on another show, if Phil, Ramy, Flex Lewis, and Sean Rhoden all compete next year, can Brandon Curry make the top 5?
I think so. I think he can. I think that Curry, as the reigning Mr. Olympia, is going to be one of the guys to beat. I think the judges are going to be putting him right in that first call out, right in the middle there. If Sean Rhoden does get cleared of his, these rape allegation charges and wins his court case and comes back, I would say he's got to be the favorite. He's the last guy to beat everyone. So it's going to be tough. We've never seen Ramy in shape on an Olympia stage, so betting on him would be like betting on Cedric to be in shape. So I think that it would be a Rhoden versus Phil versus Curry, the three Mr. Olympias in there. I don't think we're going to see Phil Heath anymore. I know everyone says, oh, he might come back. I don't think we're going to see him anymore. If we didn't see him this year, and this year he easily could have walked through that show, gotten that 8th title. If we didn't see him this year, he's probably not coming back.
Well, a solemn note on the end of that answer, Dave. Oh, here we go. Konstantin Malamov wants to know, skinny fat solution, which I have to assume means that they're skinny and fat at the same time.
Skinny fat. I don't really know what that means.
No,
but
I had to assume. I don't know if I was right.
What's the question about skinny? Skinny fat to me means people that have no muscle, but are not overweight, but they look fat because they just have skin that hangs.
Sounds like that's what they're talking about.
Yeah. Well, what do they want? What is the question regarding it?
They want a solution. Skinny
put muscle
fat
on.
solution.
Add muscle. You put muscle under that skin, it's going to pull the skin tight and it's going to make you look good. I know girls that just don't eat any protein. They just starve themselves all day. They're lean, but they have no muscle on their body, so the skin just hangs. Muscle. You got to put muscle under the skin.
There you go. Easy as that, Constantine. Here's another quick hitter from Muscle Machine. Glutamine works?
Glutamine works great if you have digestive system issues, because when you orally ingest glutamine, the intestinal cells steal most of it and help with the regeneration of the lining of the intestinal cells, supposedly good for the immune system as well. The problem is that glutamine, orally absorbed at least, never really makes it to the muscle cells as glutamine. But the good news is that if you eat a high protein diet, your muscle cells can make their own glutamine. Glutamine is not an essential amino acid like valine and isoleucine, and leucine is the branched chains. It's one of these amino acids that your body can make on its own. Give your body enough protein, the muscle cells will make the glutamine for them that they need and that they require.
Caesar Pat wants to know your opinion on Stanimal moving to the open.
I think it's a good move. Him and I, interviewed prior to the Olympia, and he told me that he was going to be moving to the open. And I think he's got a good structure. I know he likes to train. He trains with Sean Rhoden, actually, so it would be great to see him 20 pounds bigger up on an open bodybuilding stage. I think he's going to do great.
All right. Classic Peach Physique wants to know, what are the tricks to getting a V-taper or smaller waist for a classic physique competitor?
It's very hard to get a V-taper if you're not born with it. A lot of classic, physiques are genetic. If you have a good genetic structure and then you build on that, you're going to do very well in that division. If you don't have a good, I would never have been a good classic guy. I was a guy with a so-so structure. And for me, adding mounds and mounds of muscle enabled me to overcome or compensate for some of the genetic structural flaws that I had in my physique. So I think you have to take into account what your genetics are. Now, that's why there's different divisions for different people. Can you improve your waist to shoulder ratio? Yeah, I guess you can. I mean, if you wear one of those waist shapers, those corsets, and really reduce your waist size a little bit, it's going to help. But at the end of the day, if you don't have a V-taper because you're genetically not born with wide shoulders and a small waistline, you really can't. You can't get one. You can build a nice one, but you're not ever going to have an awesome structure.
And it looks like we've got a little more time before Iron Rage with Lee Priest, so we'll squeeze a few more questions in, just like Sid likes to do. Here we go. Tweed Dog. Do you think men's physique guys are getting too big now? The division was created for an achievable physique to the average man. Also, classic may go the same way when we start seeing extended midsections in that class. What's your take on this, Dave?
Well, here's my take. It's a good question, actually. The reason why classic will never get out of hand is because they have weight limits on your height. So for every height class, or every height, I guess by half inch increments, you have a weight restriction. So if you can't gain more than that weight, or you won't fit into classic, you're not going to see the blown out bellies in classic because of that. In men's physique, where they just in the board shorts, they should implement the same weight restrictions. If they did that, they would also have good proportions. Now they're allowing these guys to get huge, and the top guys are so big that they could probably, if they had legs to match their upper body, they'd probably be good open bodybuilders, okay? They're actually bigger than some of the classic guys, and why is that? Because there's no weight limit in men's physique. I think that men's physique should have the same weight limits per height, so they keep proportions the same so that everyone kind of matches up better, yet they'll still wear the board shorts. And I think that would be the right solution.
And it only seems fair to answer the very first question posted by DEJ Wick. Most tests you have ever run, Dave?
I know no one will believe me, but the most I've ever run is 1,200 milligrams a week. I've said this before, and when I hit 1,200, I start to get like a serum sickness feeling almost, where it's actually, I almost feel like I have the flu. Every time I pass that 1,200 milligram per week mark. So I never did it. I always stayed around 1,000, maybe 1,100, on an odd week. But by and far, about 1,000 milligrams of testosterone a week. Matter of fact, the last 3 years or 4 years of my career, I took 250 milligrams every other day, which probably doesn't even add up to 1,000 a week. It's probably more like it averages out to about 800 milligrams per week. And I found that was fine for me. Now, for maintenance, for growth, I found that 1,000 milligrams per week worked.
And we'll take just two more. One more big one from Reds55 Radke. Dave, I watched the entire Olympia this past weekend. I couldn't help but notice that the women were ripped and big. I know women aren't supposed to take tests, but we know they do. Having said that, how much would they take, and how the hell would they get it prescribed to make it legal? Is it common practice that women are prescribed tests?
I have never helped, well, I shouldn't say that. Of the women I help, I would never allow them to take testosterone. Have some of them taken testosterone while I was helping them? Probably, but those are the women bodybuilders. Women should not take testosterone. There's too many side effects. And you got to understand, and I've explained this before, when a boy goes through puberty, when they hit 12, 13 years old, they start puberty, it takes them until they're 18 years old, like 5 or 6 years, before they actually fully develop the male masculinized features that we see an adult male have. So when women take testosterone, which they never should, okay, the first year they take it, they don't really notice. They may notice some breakouts and a little hair growth here, but they don't really notice really bad side effects, because the bad side effects are cumulative. Okay, so it might take 3 years, but then all of a sudden they're gonna look in the mirror one day and they're gonna have a jaw bigger than than a man, and they're gonna have irreversible side effects. So women should never take testosterone. Does that mean that women don't take testosterone? I'm sure there's some that take it because they're misguided. Their boyfriend is telling them, well, I take 1,000, you should just take 200, Or, they have a coach that doesn't care about them and just wants their results, the results of the coach, that is, to be so good that they're willing to sacrifice these women. I treat each woman as if they're my wife. Would I want my wife to take this? If the answer is no, then you guys don't take it. There's no reason for a bikini competitor to be taking anything more than Anavar. And most of them don't need anything. They just need some fat burners to get in shape. So, less is better with women. It's not that hard to get a woman bigger if you give her a lot of drugs. My challenge to you is get that woman looking awesome without the use of a lot of drugs. So you keep her femininity. Now you've accomplished something and you can call yourself a real coach.
And the final question by Hernan. Best advice to make gains while being off cycle? Well, if you're cycling steroids throughout the year, the goal of the off period is to regenerate receptors, okay, clean your body out, and not worry about necessarily gaining muscle, but just making sure that you don't lose muscle, okay, or lose excessive muscle. You're going to lose weight when you go off your drugs because you're going to lose a lot of water weight, but if you eat well, you train, and you rest enough, you should be able to maintain your muscle mass that you've put on throughout the whole year. You're only going off for 8 weeks, 10 weeks. It goes fast, okay? Train and eat. The problem is that a lot of guys, when they're off cycle, think, I can't train, I can't do this, I can't do that, because I'm not on drugs, I'm not going to be... No, it's not about worrying about putting muscle on, it's about training hard, because you know that a well-trained muscle responds better to steroids. So when you go back on your steroids after being off for 8 to 10 weeks, your body will respond. You can't just lay around and do nothing. That's ridiculous. And on that ridiculous ending note, that will do it for this episode of Ask Dave. Again, huge shout out to Sid for doing all that killer coverage of the Olympic Muscle Bowl out there last weekend. And that's going to do it. We'll see you next time. Fade in logo.